Hello and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Asperger Studios. My next guest is a mother of an autistic child who turned her journey into a mission, founding Unpuzzle Parents Connect to support, guide, and empower families navigating the world of autism. So sit back, relax, and grab your favorite beverage, and let's learn more about her. See you there.
I wanna believe in the truth, but only see what I'm shown. Got the freedom to choose, but can't decide on my own. Follow what the group is thinking, bottle up my intuition till it's popping up.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Asperger Studios. Today I'm joined with Whitney Price. Welcome to the show, Whitney.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So why don't you start off with telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am a founder of a nonprofit called Unpuzzle Parents Connect. But most importantly, I am a mom to a little boy named Connor who just turned 7 and is on the autism spectrum. And
Mhm.
he is the backbone of behind everything that we do in our life and in our organization.
All right, so let's start off with one of the bigger questions. What was the moment that made you say, okay, I need to build this? Was it frustration, a breakdown, or just a breakthrough?
A little bit of both. Um, our journey began at the peak of the pandemic when our son was diagnosed. He was diagnosed at the age of 2.5, and I am located in West Virginia, in the state that is most behind all of the resources. And we lack federal funding, we lack state funding. We are last in the nation for all resources for the disability community. And my husband and I also live in an area that we didn't and were not surrounded by family and friends who understood. So there was a need for us and really a craving for that emotional support and connection. And we were trying to build something for our son because we knew if we couldn't find it, then we were going to have to move. And we just didn't have that capability at the time with our jobs. So Unpuzzled Parents Connect started off as just a support group, and there was 10 of us around a little round table, just searching for resources. But also, we wanted to start kind of like a parent association of other children that were at his therapy center so that we could just connect, have play dates, live as normal as we would have hoped with other friends for our children. We had parents in our group that all had kids around the same age, which was great. So we started just doing little activities here and there. But once we started a group on Facebook, it just continued to grow and grow. And then eventually we became the largest support group in the state of West Virginia. So for parents to children with disabilities. So we could see that it was absolutely a need for our state and something that our other parents needed help with as well.
First of all, I mean, bravo to you for being one of the biggest in your state. I mean, you should be the beacon of hope for many other states that don't have support because people don't realize what this support means to them, especially when you have a child who's autistic or has ADHD and you can't get the resources. They don't realize the struggle that the parents go through with what do I do? How do I get him tested? Is he going to have friends? And I'm hoping your organization will grow from just West Virginia and soon go cross country and cross state lines because other states need to have this, need to know that, hey, you there are parents out there who should start their organizations to help their kids or just band together because we are human beings after all, and we do need the same support as other people.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. We are on the border of Ohio,
Mhm.
and the amount of support that we've been given from that state, who has triple the resources that we have, but right on that border of the Mid Ohio Valley, there's nothing there. And
Oh,
all of
wow.
those parents have really kind of combined with us. And we have really branched out into that space, into that county, because we've seen a need. So we know that there's a lack of resources, not just in our state, but in the surrounding. And like you said, there's so much support needed that we've had parents from Florida and Missouri now attend our virtual classes because
That's
they're
great.
free. We offer them to everyone, and we just want to have, a very strong community that you can go to, or if you have a question, we can find an answer for you. So we want to be that kind of beacon of support for other families as well.
Now, you say no caregiver should feel alone. What did loneliness look like for you? I mean, what was that spark that just said, we need to do this? I mean, everyone knows every parent should be an advocate. What was that spark for you? And what did loneliness feel like?
Loneliness was complete isolation for us. We had no family to talk to about it. We say that we were the first generation in our families, but now that we know more about neurodiversity, we
Mhm.
don't think we were the first. We think that there's probably quite a few other family members that went undiagnosed, maybe for ADD or ADHD or even autism. But at the time, no one else knew what to really think about our
Mhm.
son, about us having autism. I'm sure there were several parents that had said, well, you didn't do this, so I'm sure your child's going to be fine. Or even you did the same thing, so you turned out fine. And all of the just unsolicited advice that we received along the way. But I think the hardest part was the fact that, no one at our job knew what we were going through. We had this little boy who had just turned 2.5. We had no idea what to do. We didn't know much about autism other than the stereotypical things that you'd hear about. And it was probably the most depressed time that we've ever had, not because of our son, but because we didn't know what we were going to do for him. We thought, we tried so hard to become parents, from infertility drugs to
Mhm.
treatments to having miscarriages along the way. And then we finally have this little boy, and, we're letting him down, and he's only 2, and we don't know what to do. And all of that isolation set in pretty quickly. And it happened for about a year before we finally felt comfortable enough to talk to people about it. Therapy helped us a ton.
Mhm.
Therapist for me was probably a huge guiding light that said, okay, there's some tools and techniques that you can use beyond what you already know to help with stress and anxiety and all the emotions that come with this diagnosis. But also, it gave us that sense of community when we finally did find another parent that we liked, that we clicked with, that our kids were together. And it was like, okay, there's no judgment. There was no fear of,
Mhm.
doing something wrong or saying something silly or inappropriate. And we just knew that, okay, our kids are going to be able to thrive together. And once we found that, we didn't want to let it go. We wanted more of that. We wanted to build a community that everybody felt safe, everybody felt welcome. Our kids could, you know, have their moments if they needed a quiet space to cool down, or whatever anybody was going through was okay, because we were all together and someone was going through the same thing. Maybe not the exact same story, but we all had unique differences. But at the end of the day, everyone just had this comfort surrounding them that, this was a safe space for us to come to. But once we found that, we craved it more. And we started finding families across the state that didn't have it. So we reached out to them. We started developing support groups in 12 different counties in the state to try to say, hey, if you can't make it to Parkersburg, if you're too far away, that's okay. Let's help you build your own so that you guys can connect, and so that you have somebody to have these play dates and gatherings with, and just a space that is judgment free above everything else.
I mean, it must be great to like build a village from ground zero to what you have now, to all this showing support throughout for all these counties, because now people are realizing, hey, my kid my kid's got a problem. He's autistic or he's got ADHD. Now I know there's support for him, and watching it must be a real feel good feeling of having all these people come to you and go, hey, thank you so much for doing this. My kid's now made a friend for your group, and I've learned so much.
Oh, absolutely. It's it's the best feeling in the world knowing that you helped someone, especially if you can help them financially. We were one of the families that were selected for West Virginia waiver program. So Connor was able to qualify based off of his disability, and we were able to help get Medicaid. So that for us was a big lifeline because we were spending so much money out of pocket for therapies, copays, deductibles. And now that we know the different programs in the state, we're able to get these other children the same help that we were able to receive. Nothing is better than knowing that you helped provide, not, personally providing them financial relief, but you helped guide them in that direction. And for us, that's been the biggest reward above all of this. And the fact that our son now has therapies that he wouldn't have had otherwise because we wouldn't have known about them. And there's so many friends that he has made and that we've made along the way because of our connections through our children. The other crazy piece is I was just recently diagnosed yesterday with my own ADHD. And for a parent, being almost, dare I say, 40, going all that time and not realizing that some of those symptoms were related to my ADHD just put a light bulb that went off and said, hey, I wasn't crazy all along. I could have had so much more support in my own schooling, in my own home. And what a world of a difference that would have made. But it's not just me. We've had several parents that have gone, okay, I think I might be neurodiverse as well. And we've helped them get their own diagnosis. So I think it kind of comes back full circle of, just helping people and then being able to help the parents on that personal level of, if we know that our children are diagnosed, could it be within our own genes that we have neurodiversity of some sort? And it's just a pretty cool experience.
Now let's circle back a bit. When did you and your husband realize Connor was autistic?
He was nonverbal up to the age of almost 4.
Oh, wow.
So when the pandemic hit, he was 2.5 and he was still in daycare at the time. And in our state, we have what's called West Virginia Birth to 3, which is a program that is offered to children for free, and it really tracks their milestones. So if they're delayed in any way, it could be cognitively, it could be social, emotional, speech development, they'll have a specialist come in and evaluate children either in pre-Ks or daycare center for us. And they had evaluated Connor and they said, he's delayed for speech. You qualify for this program. Well, he was only 2 at the time and he said some words, but, there were so many other milestones that he'd already reached and we didn't think much of it. We said, okay, he's just going to be late. No big deal. Well, when the pandemic happened, we were shut down completely. We were both home. I was home with him for 120 days. And I had a lot of time to spend. And that's when, between the age of 2 and 2.5, we started seeing some different behaviors that started to raise some questions. He loved to flip over his big cars. He loved wheels. He loved fans. He loved anything that was bright and flashing. And he loved to jump. The little boy would jump nonstop and never called for us. But he didn't have... at the time, he wasn't lining up things. He didn't have a lot of the same symptoms that a lot of the other children had. And on, Google, you have all these different miniature tests that you can take and see if your child, he never scored on those. So 2 occupational therapists said, we don't think he has autism. We think he might be deaf. And he had reoccurring ear infections. So we got him a new set of tubes. He had already had his first one at the age of 1. So at 2.5, he got his second and he still wasn't speaking. And then at one point we had 15 words that he was up to and he completely lost them all during that regression. We didn't know that it was a regression at the time. We had no idea. We just thought the tubes must have fallen out and he must be, potentially having trouble hearing. Maybe that's why he's not speaking. But, when they're toddlers and they're that little, everything is so new and so innocent for them. And in the fact that we're in the pandemic, you're in isolation already. So there was too many outside factors that really said, okay, could it be autism or is this baby just, needing a new set of tubes. So it wasn't until that we actually got him that set of tubes and he still hadn't progressed that a psychologist from that organization came in and said, okay, he actually has autism.
Oh wow.
And then that's what really actually solidified it for us. But before that, we had some questions, but nothing that was standing out enough or to other therapists to say, yeah, he for sure has autism.
What was it like when they told you he had autism? Was it like this light bulb moment, like, oh wow, this explains so much?
I think it was, but when we had our appointment, the psychologist, I'm sorry, came in our home through that program. So we were able to play with her in the basement where all his toys were. And she was the first person that he'd really seen in person since the pandemic happened.
Mhm.
And the appointment was so interactive for him that we thought this is going great. He's doing so good. We thought, okay, she's going to think we're crazy. And she kept complimenting how smart he was. He knew all of his colors, his numbers, his letters, characters, but just couldn't say anything. And I thought, okay, he's doing so good. She's going to think we're nuts. And then at the very end, when she had been there for 3 hours, tallied up all the scores, went off of the DSM-5 model, she said he actually has autism. Here's where I think he's at. He may be nonverbal, potentially forever. I can't tell you if that will change. Get him into these therapies and let's really work intently with him as much as we can until he turns 3 and then try to get him into other therapies. But as a parent, you start to question everybody. You
Yeah.
question, is she right? Is she not
Mhm.
right? Could there be something else underlying? Maybe he's, just not developing yet. Maybe he will. Or the typical, maybe he'll grow out of this. And maybe it was all just a label to begin with. And you don't know anything in those first few years of parenting, let alone about what autism could entail. And now that we've met hundreds of other kids, I mean, for sure, there's no denying that he's on the spectrum. He was diagnosed at a level 3 for the DSM-5 scoring, and he is semi-verbal now. So we've
Right.
made strides in those last 5 years, and he's been in intensive therapies since he was 2. But
Mm.
he has evolved and become so much more charismatic than
Yeah.
we could have ever hoped for. So
Mhm.
I mean, there's no denying it for sure. If you saw him in public or in a public area, you would likely know that maybe not that he has autism, but you would know that there's a delay of some
Right.
sort. But I mean, the progress and the strides that we've made compared to where we were have been amazing.
I mean, people don't realize when they see us that, yeah, we may be put together on the inside when we're out in public, but they don't see the flip side. I mean, I think that's one of the hardest parts about being a parent with somebody who's autistic is they don't see what the parent goes through. They don't see the trauma. They don't see the worry of what's going to happen to their child when they're gone. I mean, it's that whole perspective of I'm so focused on my kid that I don't focus on myself.
For sure.
And let's get into that a little bit about your organization. What was the hardest part about getting it off the ground? I mean, was there a time where you just said, this is too much. I just want to throw in the towel. I'm getting red tape everywhere.
That happens frequently because we're so new. I think in any business, it's incredibly difficult to start. And it's just me right now. We don't have any paid staff. We work off of volunteers. So we have a parent advisory board that's really the backbone of the organization, and all of us want what's best for our kids and we want to see things grow. But the most amazing part is we've had so much community um, volunteerism through our state. We've had therapists that have volunteered their time. We've had parents volunteer, students, teachers. I mean, you name it, they've come into our organization at some point. But it's very hard to grow and get off the ground because a nonprofit works off of donations and
Yeah.
grants. And with the federal funding being so tight right now, a lot of the grants we were hoping to receive, we haven't.
Hmm.
So we have gone off of just the blessings of a lot of volunteers, a lot of therapists and providers that have volunteered to do trainings, classes, their time and their support, and just the donors. They have been amazing. But the biggest motivator is every event that we have, we've grown. Last event we had 120 people. We're getting ready to do another fundraiser where we anticipate 400 to 500 people showing up. And I mean, every time we have an event, we just keep getting bigger and bigger, but we keep pulling from those surrounding counties. Last event we had someone that drove an hour and a half to get to us. So we know that if we continue to work hard, the fruits are going to pay off. The fruits are going to continue growing. And eventually, we would like to have an established organization that can offer children therapies, family support, counseling, and wellness is something that we just started offering. And that was very important for us, for my family especially, that we wanted to make sure that people had the proper tools and techniques to stay calm during that chaotic time in life. But at the same time, we're still developing that strong community where parents can go, they can feel comfortable, their children can feel comfortable. And my husband and I always said we would build an island for Connor to just be able to be himself, for us to figure out life along the way. And that's exactly what we want to do. So literally build him that island, but invite everybody else there too.
Why, let me ask you, why do you think parents stop the minute they get the diagnosis from their child and don't realize they need to start focusing on themselves?
Oh, that overwhelming anxiety consumes you because I'm a type A personality. So I was a finance manager before I stepped into the nonprofit world. Everything had to be, I's dotted, T's crossed. Everything had to be perfect. And I lived that way for a long time. I was by a very strict schedule. I liked my own routine. So for our son, my husband's the same way, same background. We both in the auto industry. So when our son was diagnosed, everything was on his time. That type A personality had to be dropped. But that isolation and that overwhelm consumes you. It'll consume your mind because you don't know where to turn, who to go to. You don't know where to find these resources. And for us, we assumed that they would be there and they weren't. So that self-isolation, the self-blame, the grief, the anxiety, the depression, all of that comes at you at once. So if you're not someone that's ever really had to go through a situation like that, it's hard. We had never dealt with that. We had been just the two of us as a married couple for a while, enjoying life, enjoying the fact that we didn't have any health issues or health concerns, realizing that we had so much privilege at the time that we didn't even know that we had. We'd never struggled financially before. That was very new to us. We had our bills paid. We had everything set up. We had a savings account. So when therapy was rejected or our insurance was rejecting therapies, out-of-pocket expenses add up very quickly. We paid more than a mortgage payment for Connor's therapies and co-pays and deductible. And I can see why, looking back now, that parents are just immediately isolated, depressed, and overwhelmed because we were. And we wouldn't have thought that about ourselves 10 years ago. We would have thought, yeah, we'll be able to do this parenting thing. We wanted a bunch of children. We wanted, an army full of kids and to grow our household full of brothers and sisters. And it just didn't work out that way. Those were obstacles we had never overcome. So when you have other families that don't have the answers, that don't have the support emotionally, physically, mentally, all of that changes. So I can see why someone would just go into shutdown mode.
I mean, you mentioned a lot of things, and one of the biggest things is people don't realize is that we don't have, when you get your child diagnosed, or even when we get diagnosed as an adult, that they don't realize insurance doesn't cover half the stuff that we need to get done, especially when it comes to getting diagnosed. That's one of the biggest expenses for any parent or any person to get diagnosed. It's the biggest, and there are handfuls of people who do it, and they're scattered. So finding that resource alone is the toughest.
Absolutely. And overcoming those insurance rejections is
That's
a level of advocacy
yeah.
in itself.
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
It's a heartbreaker because people don't realize that there aren't many resources. There aren't much for insurance to cover because they don't co you look at things like the assessment, that's not covered by insurance. That's a huge expense.
Yes.
And I remember, I mean, I was lucky enough that I went through a clinical trial for an autism drug that one of the main things was to see the full assessment, the 4 hour assessment to see where I was on the spectrum. And it got covered. But people don't realize that little test is probably like 4 grand.
Easily.
And out of pocket, and if you're not prepared for that kind of expense, it kills you.
Hmm.
And then, like you
And
said, therapy and everything else that we put for, either if it's ABA or any of the other therapies, that's hugely expensive. And I guarantee you, insurance does not cover it. And you could be the most well-established financially person there is. The minute you start paying out of pocket for something, people don't realize that's a huge chunk out of your savings. And it's a monthly fee. And it just is like it drains you, and parents don't realize that they need to think about this stuff before the time comes.
oh, for sure. And the hardest part for us was we didn't know about West Virginia waiver at the time. We didn't know that he could qualify. And then when we were awarded that spot, everything changed. We were paying $50 copays a day for each insurance or for each therapy that he had. We had a $10,000 deductible that we had to meet.
Wow.
And then at one point for ABA, it was $100 an hour. And we were told that we were rejected twice. But we
Ouch.
didn't know at the time that you could overcome those rejections, but it would take a lot of work and a lot
Mhm.
of, work from different providers, primary care, letters of medical necessities. We found that out as we went after we had paid an arm and a leg, and
Yeah.
we were, about ready to sell our house before we were given that Medicaid spot. But once we were, we thought, okay, if nothing else, this is our duty for the rest of our life to really let parents know and educate them that, hey, there is support out there. We just have to find a way to get your child qualified.
I
But
mean,
it's exhausting. So
what
I understand when parents are exhausted at the end of that.
what people don't realize is med and even our own government don't realize what Medicaid is and how it helps those who are struggling. And the other thing is they don't realize that there are those of us who are fighting. We may have jobs, but we are fighting because we have a child who can't who won't be able to find a job, but will still be able to thrive and can't afford his own insurance. But Medicaid is there to say, hey, I understand that you are struggling. I understand that you're a parent of a child. We're going to give you the support of your state by paying for your medical bills. Medicaid is a lifeline to some of us who are struggling. I mean, I'm on Medicaid myself because I can never find work after I lost my last job, and it's part of it, I think, is because companies don't want to take the time and hire someone who's autistic.
Yeah, definitely. And And it's unfortunate that we don't have more job placement companies out there that are willing to do that. We have one in our state, but the problem is they haven't partnered with enough organizations, to be able to actually have placement for people
Mhm.
that are needing help. So,
Now, let's talk a little bit about education, connection, and advocacy. When a family comes to you, what is the one big need they need the most when they show up?
usually it's a guide. They come to us, I would say, the majority of the time after they receive that diagnosis. So we get a lot of families that
Mhm.
were like us in the Birth to Three program that have just had that or received a diagnosis. That's when we get a referral, typically. And they will come to us and say, okay, now what? Or if the child has graduated the program and they're wanting to know what therapies are out there, what financial resources we can provide or help them get, what types of programs are on Medicaid. And we also educate them on different training programs that we have within our organizations. We try to do monthly trainings. We call them Knowledge is Power. And we
Mhm.
offer them both in person and through Zoom so that no matter where they're at in the state or in the country, they have access to that. We try to just allow them, a little bit of space, whatever they need, whether it's emotional support and connection through our support groups.
Mhm.
We just now put together, um, 2 weeks ago, a dad group also. So we've now got a dad support group that we're really excited about.
Great.
And just anything that our families would need help with. Advocacy is something that's always needed, especially in the schools. So we put together IEP trainings and
No,
504 trainings. That
that
way
is
we can connect them to
that is
different
so
advocates throughout the state.
that is so important, IEPs, because parents don't realize that you need to get that in pronto, like immediately for your child, because if you don't, then it becomes a battle of my child needs this and he's in your school and they don't realize it's too late. Now they gotta work backwards and then get that IEP done for the child's next semester of high school or grammar school because I've talked with parents who've got the IEP in and don't advocate enough to push and then realize the school dropped the ball and they never pushed the paperwork forward and then it becomes a huge fight of why didn't you do this for my child? I handed you the paperwork.
Yeah, exactly. Or the school is, um, not following the codes
Mm,
and the proper laws and regulations that they need to follow.
yeah.
And the parent doesn't know. And they're just, they don't know that they're allowing things that shouldn't be happening to happen. So that training piece is really important.
No, let's talk a little bit more about your mission. Can you walk me through one of your events or workshops? What's it like? The vibe in the room? Is it emotional, uplifting?
Sure. So, our mission is to provide comfort, support to parents and families that have children with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I
Mm-hmm.
would say 90% of our organization has children on the spectrum
Okay.
or parents on the spectrum or some type of neurodiversity. We're a very neurodiverse group. So, we try to do workshops for things like ADHD, dyslexia, autism. Um, We've hosted several events online and in person, and we want accessibility to be there. So we know that because of our state being last in the nation with resources, our biggest goal is to make these trainings accessible. So we always have an online website. We're starting also a YouTube page where we're going to have prior, trainings that we've hosted that people can go back and watch if they missed it. But the biggest thing is we just want to make everybody feel very comfortable and we want to give them a guide or a solution for any problems that they may have. And above everything else, we want them to have that emotional support and connection that we know that every parent needs.
It's so good because I mean, parents don't realize what they need. They don't realize it. I mean, My feeling is when a parent gets that diagnosis for their child, they go into like a freeze mode where they don't know what to do. They're lost. And then what do? They go to Google of all things, and they don't realize that could be more hurtful than helpful.
Right. That's absolutely right.
Now, what do you say to a parent who feels like they're doing it all wrong? I've seen it, and I know there are those who are not alone in that.
It's okay to have a trial and error.
Mm,
Every therapy is going to be different. Not every therapy is for every kid. So there's no right way or wrong way to doing this. As long as you are trying, that's that's the most important thing. I think as long as you are going to keep pushing forward for your child, that is the main goal and objective. Because my child might excel in occupational therapy and your child might not need that, or vice versa. And we don't know what therapies Connor is really going to excel in right now. And I'm a firm believer that we've tried everything, but there's some things that he didn't really take to. And that's okay. Not every kid is going to be the exact same. And I'm sure you've heard once you've met one autistic
yep.
individual, you've met one autistic
Yeah.
individual. Everybody is unique and no child or person is the same. And that's what we try to tell our parents is it's okay. It's okay at the end of the day. If you tried something new and it didn't work out, that's just a lesson. That's not a failure.
Mm.
So we had to keep that in the back of our mind too, because there were several things that we had tried for Connor that we pushed him into thinking this is what they say he needed, and he absolutely hated. So we found out not every therapy is for us or for him, and that's okay. And the same with the therapy centers and therapists. He might excel in occupational therapy but not vibe with that therapist. Try
Mhm.
somebody different. But don't feel like you have failed or your child's failed. It just may not be the right fit for them. And that's okay. This whole journey is going to be trial and error and just a learning experience. But there's not failures, there's lessons.
I mean, people don't realize that yeah, failure isn't the end, it's a lesson learned. And parents, and you're right when you say what may work for you doesn't work for what may work for them doesn't work for you because everybody is different. Every therapy is different. It's geared towards each an individual. So ABA doesn't work for them, but this may work for you. And or this doesn't work, but this does work. So parents got to realize that because they need to get into the mindset of, okay, so this doesn't work for my child. This is not the end. It's the beginning because now you got to try something new that will work.
Right. It's incredibly important.
Now, what is one of the biggest things that drives parents nuts? Is it the services? Is it the paperwork? Is it dealing with the red tape?
I think it's a little combination of everything because when the child starts to mature and grow up, they're constantly changing, just like every child, but it can be more intense for our kids. So I think when you're on this journey at the very beginning, you have in our state a lot of hurdles to go through. You've got insurance rejections, lack of resources, financial struggles, along with the fact that you may have a child like mine who is nonverbal. So when you have that communication barrier, everything changes. When the child's sick and they can't tell you what's wrong, your fight or flight kicks in, all those emotions come back. You've got anxiety that you might be dealing with, PTSD for a lot of our parents. And I think for us, those first few years was really hard because he couldn't communicate. We couldn't communicate with him. And there was so much unknown in this journey. You know, there were therapy centers that we had him at that we should have never had him at that ended up closing and shutting down. Um, there were times that he was ill that were, landing us in the hospital because we didn't know what was wrong. We just knew he had a high fever and we had a child that couldn't communicate or tell us if his head was hurting, stomach was hurting, if he was in any pain. And we had a child that was very resistant to pain. So he would just go through everything and just keep going as if nothing was wrong. So I think there's just a big mix of everything depending on the child and the scenario that can be very overwhelming for parents. And I think if they have the proper tools in place, then at least they can alleviate some of that anxiety. For us, it was anxiety. It was always something going on at those first few years that really made it challenging. But that lack of communication was probably the hardest. And they don't always grow into that. Some kids do develop speech, some of them don't. Some of them need an AAC device or something to help them along the way. But that barrier in communication can really be something that triggers anxiety for us because if they're upset, it comes out in a behavior form. So if they're feeling something emotionally, you can have a child that self harms, you can have a child that might harm others, and you don't know what that reason is. And that can be overwhelming for both of us, or for my husband, for me, and for my son, because we just see the meltdown. We didn't see the cause that was causing the meltdown. So it's hard to pinpoint just one area. I think every family is different. And for us, it was just that barrier for communication for Connor in those first
Mhm.
probably 3 years.
Now, what are some of the practical tools or tricks you've seen actually help parents breathe a little bit easier?
Definitely therapy for themselves, and then therapy or counseling. I think if you get the proper therapist, that can be life changing because they're going to really focus on different tools and techniques that are proven to work that can work specifically for you.
Okay.
And you might have a parent that picks up their own diagnosis along the way,
Oh,
whether it be, anxiety, depression, neurodiversity, ADHD, like me. So,
oh,
and then you can realize, what was happening all along finally makes sense, and you get new tools and techniques to use.
I've heard many stories where guests tell me, "Oh yeah, I took my child to get tested," and as the doctor's going through all the different symptoms and traits, I'm like, "Oh, me? I do that. I do that. I do that. I do that." Oh, and then they turn to the doctor and they go, "You're explaining me. Does that mean I'm autistic or ADHD at all?" And the doctor's like, "Oh yeah, most likely so. You might as well get yourself tested." And then it's like this whole revelation of, oh my God, now I have a connection with my child that opens up a whole new barrier of support for each other because now you understand your child as much as your child will understand you.
And I think so many of us look back on our childhood and wish we would have had that
Yeah.
support. We wish we would have had a teacher or someone that could have reached out and given us a little bit more grace and understanding instead of maybe a punishment.
Hmm.
For me, at least, I know that's how I felt. It was like, okay, finally, I realized when I was younger in class,
Hmm.
not understanding what was happening and being forced to sit still, wanting to jump around, wanting to move. Who knows what could have happened or what I could have had help along the way had they known, hey, this little girl just has ADHD. She'll be fine. Like, give her a little bit more grace.
Now, if a parent just got diagnosis and their brain is spinning, what is step one? Like, what would you want someone to tell you in that moment?
Right after they're diagnosed themselves or their child.
I guess their child, because yeah, because that's when it starts, when that's when their mind goes spinning. That's when they feel like, wait a minute, what do I do? Where do I go? What is step one for you to tell them? What do you
For
tell them?
us, we try to go through a different guide depending on the age of the child. So if the child just turns 3, we immediately advise them on different Medicaid programs that they could
Hmm.
qualify for. So that is the first step. The second is finding out what therapies they are wanting to enroll their child in. So maybe it's intense ABA, maybe it's just speech and occupational therapy, maybe the child needs physical therapy. Some of them are the age where they want to try cognitive behavioral therapy through a therapy center, feeding therapy. I mean, there's so many different areas that parents might want to try. And we try to help provide those resources. And then we offer them different trainings along the way. So any training that our organization is having, we make sure to tell the parents, hey, this is something that you might want to sign up for or look into. And then, of course, always emotional support. So we hook them up with our support groups and say, please attend one of these support groups, meet another parent that has a child around the same age. So you both can kind of grow through the journey together. And so your children may have a play date, even if they're not necessarily um, playing together. It's nice to be able to have somebody else go to the park with you and have a buddy to
Yeah.
where, if you want to do an activity, or maybe you're both trying to help your child in some way, or maybe you meet your therapist at the different center or playground. It's just nice to have another connection to make. So that is the first thing that I think we try to do. And then, from there, different providers, we have a list of providers that we recommend based upon good experiences and based upon referrals from our members. So if they're looking for a pediatrician, a therapist, a school, or a teacher, we have a good referral list that we can give them.
No, we both know there are two sides. There's the human and there's the service side and the human side. How do you make people feel like they belong, not just a checkbox?
I think the fact that we have a child on the spectrum, and that is recognized as, with a disability, not just through us, but through Medicaid in the state of West Virginia. There's nothing that they could really say to us, and we let them know that we started this program because we struggled. So we've told
Mhm.
people up front, this all began because of our struggles and the stress that we had when we first received that diagnosis. So we want our path to kind of be a light for another family. And hopefully we gain more resources along that way. But I think once they talk to us, they realize um, we're not trying to necessarily coach them. We just want to say, hey, here's what we found out along the way, but here's enough resources that you can pick and choose and
Mhm.
learn as you want to. Because there are a lot of different opinions still. There's some parents that don't ever want to try ABA, and then there's some that will only do ABA. So we do have a lot of opinions still, even within our organization, but it's not up to me to
Well,
decide what their child does. It's up to them. But I want to give them as much information as I can and as many resources and families that they can reach out to where they can feel as if they have properly um, made the right decision more than anything.
I mean, what you said about ABA is so true. I've come across so many people who I think won't try it because what they've heard from the past. And it's like the old saying of you can't change somebody's mind when their mind is already set.
Sure. We
There's
went through
yeah.
the first center that my son was at was a nightmare. We there was a little bit of good in it. He did have a really wonderful BCBA, and he had a couple good techs, but they ran it like a daycare center,
Ugh.
and there was so many red flags involved in this therapy center that ended up getting shut down. The owner was put in jail, and there
Oh
was
wow.
a lot of trauma that came from this center. And I will say that even with that experience, we learned to start asking more questions
Yeah.
and to not just assume that because they had the label of an ABA center, that they were going to be following codes and the proper guidelines, So don't be afraid to ask questions. And just because someone has initials at the end of their name doesn't mean that they're going to be the right fit for you. Because there's a lot of providers that really value money
Oh
over
yeah.
the care for the children. We have found that out the hard way. And I think we'll probably continue finding that out throughout our son's life. But I think that's still a reason why our organization is so imperative for so many parents, because we go off of referrals now. So we make sure if we put you on our referral list that we've had enough parents that have gone to the program or to a provider and have had positive experiences. And that's what we want to lead with. We want positive referrals so that you're not just walking into an appointment blindly, because there's plenty of providers out there that will absolutely leech off of our families. They see the need, they see that you are a parent that is struggling. When we first had that diagnosis, you could have given us anything. We bought, sensory toys. We bought the vitamins, the products that were advertised to autism because we thought we should and we thought that was going to help. And it was just a label. We spent so much money into anything that said it could help our son. And we fell victim so quick to so many of these different therapy centers that, eventually got shut down for one reason or another. But when you are that new parent and you're so desperate for those answers and you're doing everything in your power to get your child to reach milestones and to, you're still going through all those thoughts and emotions, it's easy. It's so easy to have that, that mentality, and you'll fall victim quickly. So we try to guide our families in the right direction.
Yes, I applaud you for that because people don't realize that there is help out there, especially when you're a new parent whose child is just being diagnosed. I think one of the feelings is they feel alone. And then that brings me up to my next question is you're not just running a not-for-profit, you're building a village. You're building a village that never existed in your state. How do you create that feeling of I'm not alone anymore?
I think the more that we come together as a community, the more our families want to come back and the bigger our support groups grow. We started Coffee and Connections a couple of years ago, and we went from having two parents to now almost having the entire Starbucks full of families that have a child either on the spectrum or with a disability. And that is everything, because once a family comes to one of our events, they feel comfortable, they laugh, they meet families that are in the same situation, they want to come back. And I think that's how you build and grow that community, by keep moving forward, hosting more events. And I think the proof is just within how much we've grown, that we do really value our families and making them feel comfortable, loved, supported, laughing through tears, but also still giving them guidance when they are calling with really hard questions and with concerns. We still have people that we can refer them to. So I think more than anything, we've created this safe space that parents feel welcome, and they keep bringing more and more of the families that they've met, maybe through daycares, schools, or other organizations, or from their physicians. But yeah, I think we just create that welcoming environment.
No, can you share a moment that really hit you in the heart? One of those, yeah, this is why I do this moments.
We had our first fundraiser last year, right when we became a nonprofit. And we have met families like us that were financially struggling, um, that we've helped get on Medicaid or some type of program. And on our first fundraiser, we only set the bar for like $500 because we didn't know what we were going to get. It was just an online fundraiser. And right before we hit our goal, I remember I was in my office. It was like 5 till midnight, and I thought, we almost hit it. And a donation came through, and it was with a mom that we had just met at the Coffee and Connection event. And she was going through a financial struggle. And she was talking about how she had to quit her job to stay home with her child. We were helping her get on Medicaid so that they wouldn't have to pay the copays anymore, and setting her up on a couple other of the financial programs that she'd qualify for. And we talked for a good couple of hours. But when that donation came through, it was from her, and it was for $5. And she said, I know this isn't much, but I hope that another mom can enjoy a coffee like I did and feel good, just like I felt tonight. And I bawled my eyes out, and I was like, oh my God, we hit our goal. And it was like, if I don't do anything else, If we don't grow in the way that I hope we grow in the next few years, I don't care. Like, I know I helped one person. I gained a friend too. So I gained a friend, a connection, and I hope that, and eventually she received that Medicaid. But I'm like, this is it. This is why we do it. This is the mission overall. It's to help families not struggle alone. Even if we're not going to be able to fix everything in West Virginia. Not in my lifetime, not in my son's. You don't go and last in the nation to, top of the nation. But if
Mhm.
we can all be happy together, if we create that village where our kids can go and feel loved and connected, a lot of those problems start to disappear.
Now, what's next for Unpuzzled? Like if everything lined up perfectly, what would it look like a year from now?
Oh, our vision is to have a world where every child is loved, respected, and feels included. And our next goal is a space. So we've got an expansion project that we're working on now to try to gain money for a building so that we can host more children activities, more parent events, put more programs within the nonprofit, and then be able to provide therapies. So we are really working on bringing those resources to our town, but also providing them to the children as well. So that's our next big step for Unpuzzled. So we're excited. We're going to get there. It might take some time, but we'll get there.
If you had the power to change one thing about how special needs families are treated or supported, what would it be?
Inclusion, 100% inclusion. If we had more inclusion in the world, then we wouldn't be in the situation we're in. That is my full belief. That is a belief from an advocate parent, and that is a belief from a child um, who has profound autism. That if we had more inclusion in the community and in the world, so many of these problems wouldn't exist. Not just from a financial standpoint, but just from kindness and acceptance standpoint. We would be able to go to any playground and not have to worry if our kids would be poked fun of. We'd be able to go in any school and have the support that we need, that our kids need to thrive. We'd be able to go to any restaurant or any convenience store and not be looked at. I mean, there's so many issues that would be eliminated if people just led with acceptance, without judgment, and with kindness and inclusion. So I think that would kind of create our perfect world.
And finally, where can people help support you and read your story online?
You can find us at unpuzzledparentsconnect.com, or you can follow us on Facebook at Unpuzzled Parents Connect. We also offer resources throughout the nation. So anybody is able to join one of our calls, one of our therapy sessions that we offer, or anything that we offer online. Everything is free to our members. So as long as you like and follow the page, you are welcome to join any of our activities that we offer, and we will continue offering them for free.
And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Reed Miles. That was Whitney Price, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you, Whitney.
Thank you. I appreciate it.